All right. So let's talk about the coverts. They're the ones that seem so nice to the rest of the world. I think they're the most dangerous ones because it's like these little teeny things. They're really under the radar that everybody else thinks they are wonderful. They're very good at having this plausible deniability. They're very good at saying things and doing things in a way that can be shifted or taken in a way that, that's not what I meant. I mean, it's almost extremely hard to describe to other people. I mean, even recently, I was at an event. I was the keynote speaker for the event, and somebody was asking me about, you had to deal with a covert narcissist. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I said, yeah. And I said, I had to deal with one in business. Oh, really? What were some of the things that you had to deal with? And I said, I really have a hard time describing it because when I have to describe it, it never sounds all that bad because it's the things that they do are small and they mess with your mind, and it's over time, and it's very abusive over time, and it's death by a thousand cuts, and it's psychological. So I'm going to do these things, and I want you guys to be writing things in the comments if you've seen these things. I really want to know. Okay. So here are a few. It's only because I care about you so much that I say this insert very underhanded put down statement about you. So here's an example. Only because I care about you so much that I'm concerned about how much weight you're putting on, or how much you're drinking, or how much alcohol you're consuming, or something like that, or how much of a slut you're going to look like with that red lipstick on, something like that. It's psychological a lot of times. Many times they say the statement to a third party, and sometimes they do this in advance of the discard to start seed planting, so that when the discard actually happens, they've planted the seed so that they can show that third party that they were right. I'm so concerned about Susie. She's really drinking too much. She really had a lot to drink last night. I'm so concerned about her, so that when the discard happens and the custody battle happens, Susie's an alcoholic. You see how that happens, but it's all under the guise of concern. And that's how the coverts come across, through their very deep sense of care and concern. The other thing that they'll do, the other thing that they say is they'll say something that is very innocuous, that ends up being a massive firestorm. I was in the presence of a covert narcissist who was with her stepdaughter. And she happened to say something about how she was with the husband, the father of the child. The stepdaughter was in her 20s. And she said, oh, I've been with your dad for 20 years, whatever it was. And the stepchild got very, very upset because she realized that that meant that she had been with the father before the mother and father had broken up, and was crying and upset. And the covert narcissist was, oh, that was just a mistake. It wasn't my intention. I just said the year's wrong. It wasn't my intention to upset her. Obviously, I just said the years wrong. I meant these years. Clearly, it wasn't my intention to upset her. I meant this number of years, obviously. And she obviously knew the number of years, but she had that plausible deniability. It wasn't my intention to. So that's another thing that they say. It wasn't my intention to. They know exactly what they're doing, but they say things like that. And that's why they're so difficult to pin down, because many times they seem so nice and so kind. And these are the people that are out there, that they're humanitarians, they're doing things for the world. They're oftentimes clergy or doctors, and people think, well, obviously it must have been a mistake. It was inadvertent, but you know that it's not. You know that it was absolutely not a mistake. Another thing that they do is they'll say, oh, I must have misunderstood. I said this wrongly, or I must have misunderstood. It's all gaslighting. It's meant to make you crazy, but it's not. Lots and lots of passive aggressive behavior. It's all very, very passive aggressive. Or they might say something like, oh, it must be so nice. It must be so nice to have it like this, something like that. And I do have much more on this in my video called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, which you are certainly welcome to check out, because I had to deal with two of these in my life, one of which I've been able to cut out completely, thank God. The other one is a family member, so we've put up very, very steel boundaries as much as we can. The other thing that they do is they'll do passive aggressive things like, it's fine, it's okay, something like that. Another thing that they'll do is they'll make a comment and then they'll say, oh, I was just joking, or they'll add ha to the end of the statement, and you know that they weren't necessarily joking. By the way, if you have seen any of these things so far, give me an amen in the comments, or I would love to know what some of the examples are that you guys have seen too. I'm sure you guys have seen many of your own as well. Another one that I've seen personally is they're extremely jealous. So if something good happens to you, they just can barely bring themselves to be happy for you. So they might say, well, congratulations, so good for you. And then when you say, aren't you happy for me? They'll say, yeah, I said congratulations. And you say, well, you don't seem very happy. And you say, your tone didn't seem very happy. And then they act like you're the one who's crazy, you're reading things into it, you are reading tone. They turn it and shift it onto you, like you're the one who's absolutely insane. I said I was really happy for you. I couldn't have said it even better. I warmly congratulated you. You know, so then you just don't even bother. And then you start, maybe you are crazy, maybe you start to feel guilty. There's all of that as well. But you know, deep down inside that they really didn't seem all that happy for you, or maybe they do seem jealous, something like that. The other thing that they are very, very good at is they're extremely skillful at saying kind of two things at once, at being able to kind of give a compliment and a put down all at once. It's kind of crazy how good they are at sort of saying something like, your home, your brand new home is so beautiful. Oh, it's too bad it's on the water where you're going to have so many issues with mosquitoes. Or, wow, you've lost so much weight. It's too bad you're going to have so much issue with sagging skin, though, right? What a bummer about that. Something like that. Or coded language. It's so great about your promotion, but what a bummer about the amount of driving you're going to have to do, huh? I mean, I don't know. They're very, very good. I'm not even as good at even coming up with the examples as they are at it, because they're so good at being able to kind of give you a compliment and also a put down at the same time, and having that plausible deniability and saying things in a way that their target knows was a put down at the same time. They'll say something, where they can actually say something to you and, oh, what was the name of that again? And that they know was, why wouldn't you remember that, kind of a thing, which was meant to be a put down to you. Or they'll bring a gift to you and that was meant to be a message to you and to the rest of the world. Oh, that was nice, they brought a gift. And to you, that's a message. Those are the kinds of things that covert narcissists do and say. They are the worst. As many of you know, they're the ones that I disdain and detest the most in a lot of ways. But it also means that there are definitely ways that you can handle them. I've given you lots and lots of ways that you can actually work with them in a very powerful way as far as negotiating with them as well. Definitely handle them. You can definitely negotiate with them in a powerful way. Let's talk about that narcissist's most dangerous lie. They lie about everything, right? Narcissists lie as a way of life. They lie about all kinds of stuff, including things that they don't need to lie about, which is kind of baffling to me. And they even lie about things that are readily verifiable, which is also kind of baffling to me. And if you want to know more specifically about narcissist lies, I would highly recommend that you check out my video called Narcissists' Most Common Lies. And I actually do have an accompanying podcast to that too. So for those of you who like to get your information in different kinds of mediums, I do have a podcast. It's on every single outlet where you can find podcasts, and it's called Negotiate Your Best Life. And you can check out that show on Narcissists' Most Common Lies there too. But going back to what the most dangerous lie is, it is not what you think. It's not like, what are they saying that's so dangerous? It's more how it lands for you. And that's why it's so dangerous. And that is the lie that you desperately want to believe. And the reason why that is so dangerous is because they are constantly packaging their lies in a way that you will believe, that you want to believe, that might be plausible, that seems real, that allows you to ignore those red flags that may be going up in your head. And if you want to know more about why people ignore narcissist red flags, I highly recommend you check out my video on that. Anyway, you will be getting these lies, and you're realizing something is off, and you see something, maybe you see a text message come through that doesn't seem right, and you confront them on it. And they have some plausible explanation for it. Or it might not even be all that plausible. But you're just like, you know what? I want to believe this person. I want to believe that my whole life is not a lie. I want to believe that this person actually loves me. I want to believe that I'm not in business with a shark, with somebody who is awful. I mean, they don't seem terrible all the time. Sometimes they seem good. And so you end up processing something in a way that ends up, maybe they get away with their lie because you want to believe it so desperately. And that can happen in a number of different ways. So one of the ways that they package their lies so that you will believe it, which becomes dangerous for you, is something called future faking. And what happens there is that they say, yeah, you know what, this happened, but in the future, here's what life is going to look like. So if it's in business, I'm going to start participating. I'm going to generate all these sales. I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm taking the lead on this particular effort, whatever it is. And then they don't ever do it. And that's future faking. But in that moment, you really, really want to believe it. Same thing if it's in a romantic relationship. You know, you get that text message, or you see that thing happen, or they didn't show up for something, or they didn't do something they were supposed to. They didn't get you the birthday gift they were supposed to. They didn't take care of your kids the way they were supposed to, or blew off your mother, or whatever it is. And you call them out on it, and there you go having a conversation, which is, you know, that's never going to happen again. Let's forget about the past. Let's just think about the future. Let's just take it from here forward, because from now on, you are going to feel appreciated. You will get everything you deserve. You are the best at everything. And whatever comes out of their mouth that they have to say in that moment for you to believe them. And, you know, for a variety of reasons, sometimes you just want to believe them. So you do. And so more time goes by. And now you're investing more of your life and more of your time and more of your energy into this person. And the more you invest, the more you want it to work, the more you want to believe the lies. And if you just think that they are such liars, give me a liars in the comments. Okay, so the next reason why the way they package their lies is through gaslighting. And gaslighting is something that they use to try to make you think that you're crazy. And if you want to know more about gaslighting, check out my video on narcissist favorite gaslighting techniques. But they use gaslighting to try to make you think that you're crazy. So, and I've mentioned this before, but I haven't mentioned it in a while, so I'll mention it again for those of you who don't know. It actually comes from this old movie called Gaslight, and I think it was even a play before that, and then it became a movie, and it was like from the 30s or 40s, where the husband was trying to make the wife think that she was crazy. So he would blow out these gas lights throughout the house, and she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, no, it wasn't. And she would then, he was hoping that she would lose her mind. And that's what happens with narcissists. They start to gaslight you. They start to say things that are different than what was said before, or to try to make you believe that something happened that didn't happen, or something did happen that didn't happen, and they just rewrite reality. I had a client one time who the ex-wife, the narcissistic ex-wife, threatened to call the authorities on him if he picked up the child at a certain time or something, a time that he was entitled to pick up the child. But she said, if you do, I'm calling the authorities. So he emails her back and says, I really don't appreciate you threatening to call the cops on me, and this is exactly why I want this, this, and this done. And I want you to sign this agreement. Well, now she doesn't want to sign this agreement. She doesn't want to do these other things that he wants her to do. So she turns around to try to use it against him in a way and say, hey, I never said I was going to call the cops. I said I was going to call the authorities, which is something different. And you know darn well that when she said, I'm calling the authorities, she meant the cops. But there's a perfect opportunity for her, or perfect example of gaslighting. So now she's saying, that's not what I meant. And so, he's supposed to go, oh, what did you mean? I wasn't that? Okay. And then now you're having a conversation about that. A perfect example of gaslighting. But there's a type of lie. Gaslighting is a type of lie that you might want to believe, where they're saying now something different than what they said before, but you want to believe it because you don't want to believe that you are so wrong. I mean, a lot of times we want to believe it because we don't want to have to admit that we've been in a relationship with someone who is so horrible to us, who's so untrustworthy, who's so dishonest. We don't want to have to believe that ourselves. We don't want to have to think, oh my gosh, how could I have been so stupid or whatever? But just remember that narcissists are master manipulators. They're very good at reading people. They're very good at figuring out what it is that you want in the beginning. So you can't beat yourself up over that. So that's the most dangerous lie. The most dangerous lie is the one that you want to believe. And when you were getting ready to negotiate with a narcissist in any situation, business or personal or divorce or whatever, there is also an example of a dangerous lie, because you might want to believe that they sincerely want to negotiate with you, that they sincerely want to settle the case, that they sincerely want to make it right and have it be something that's amicable, when they don't actually. When they are actually behind your back, stabbing your back, doing things to you, and then they say they're not. You want to believe that. And that's where it can be very, very dangerous as well. Now, if you're dealing with a narcissist, which you obviously must be, or you wouldn't be here watching these videos, then you're dealing with a liar, because they are one and the same. Narcissists are liars. If you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with a liar. That's just one of those things that can't be pulled out of their personality. They just feel like they have to lie all the time to survive. Because remember, just to give you a little primer on narcissism, a little Narcissism 101, narcissists have no inner sense of value. They have to get all their value from the external. And so they get that in the form of supply, which is their lifeblood, their food source. And supply can be money and prestige and compliments, but supply is also controlling and devaluing people and gaslighting people and things like that. But they feel like they have to manipulate all the time. They're master manipulators, but the reason why they're master manipulators is because something happened with them when they were children, and they were traumatized in some way, and they drew this conclusion that in order for them to survive in the world, they have to manipulate the world. They just don't believe that they can just get something by just asking for it, by just being normal, by just being reasonable, the way the rest of the world acts. So they feel like they have to grasp onto whatever they can to in the world, and they feel like they have to manipulate that. And so a big part of that is lying. And they'll lie about all sorts of things, which is the kind of crazy thing, because they'll even lie about things that are readily verifiable, that down the road it's going to be pretty obvious that they've lied. And so it's pretty easy to catch them in a lie. So let's talk about the kinds of things that narcissists lie about. So one of the things that they'll lie about is they'll say, I promise that I'll take care of this. I promise that I'll do this. I promise that I'll be faithful to you. I promise that I will show up on time. I promise, I promise, I promise. And then they don't end up doing what they say they're going to do, or they they don't show up, and then they lie about what they were doing instead, or they try to get out of it in some way and they feel like they have to lie about it. So that's number one. They say, I promise. The second type of lie that they'll tell you is, it's not my fault. So they'll say, yeah, that happened, but it wasn't my fault, and here's why. So you'll hear that kind of lie all the time as well. The third type of lie that you'll hear is, don't worry. And, they're supposed to make you feel better because they say, don't worry, they're on top of it, they'll take care of it, whatever, and then they don't end up doing it. That's another type of lie that you'll hear. Another way that they lie is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a huge biggie for narcissists. And if you want to know more about gaslighting, check out my video on gaslighting techniques, and we will definitely drop a link to that below as well. But gaslighting is, in short, just a way of making you think that you're crazy. So they'll say, oh, we talked about that. Don't you remember? You agreed. Or, oh, that's not how that went. Or, oh, no, this is how that went. Don't you remember? And, they just are saying things to you that are just not true to manipulate your thought process so that you start to think that you're paranoid or that the problem is with you. So gaslighting is another big form of lying that they engage in. What happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie? If you confront them, what are they going to do? Deny, deflect, devalue, and dismiss. Those are the 4 Ds, and we're going to go through each one of those. So, deny. It wasn't me. I didn't do that. That didn't happen that way. Nope. Denied. Okay, so that one's pretty easy to understand. They deny it. Number 2 is deflect. Oh, it was you, or it was this person, or it was some other reason that it happened that way. It was because this happened. It was because I couldn't get there on time. It was because this person dropped the ball. It was because whatever. They're deflecting it onto someone else. It wasn't their responsibility. Somebody else had the problem, or someone or something else was the problem. Number 3 is devalue. Now it's your fault. You were the problem. You're the one. You caused it. It's because of your mistakes. It's because you were too difficult. It was because you weren't good enough. It was because you said something wrong. It was because you did something wrong. It's because you didn't do something right. It's because you did do something that you weren't supposed to do. Whatever. They're going to devalue you. It was your problem, or something that you did that was wrong. And if you want to know more about devaluing, you should check out my video on narcissistic devaluing, because it's actually one of the stages in a narcissistic relationship: love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. So devaluing is a huge part of a narcissistic relationship. And number 4 is dismiss. They'll just dismiss it. Oh, it didn't really matter. Oh, can't we just move on? Oh, let's just not even think about it anymore. Let's just forget about it. So it's just like swept under the rug, and it's just dismissed. So even if it was something super hurtful to you, your feelings aren't going to be acknowledged. They're not going to apologize to you. They're just going to say, oh, too bad, and keep going. If this all sounds familiar, give me a true that in the comments. So just remember, if you catch a narcissist in a lie, the last thing that you're going to get is, oh, you're right, I shouldn't have said that, or you're right, I wasn't truthful, or I apologize, I'm sure I hurt your feelings, I'm sure that was awful for you. Those kinds of responses are not going to happen. You're not going to be acknowledged for, whatever they put you through. It's going to be some version of devalue, deflect, dismiss, or deny. It's going to be one of those 4 things. It's not going to have anything to do with them. And the reason why is because they can't have it take away their sense of self. They have so little sense of self that any amount of taking responsibility for their actions to them is almost like dying inside. It's like survival. So you're not going to see them take responsibility for those lies. They're just going to figure out some way that it's not going to get pinned onto them. It's no secret that narcissists are pathological liars and that they're gaslighting all the time. And why do they do that? Because they have no sense of self. They don't feel any internal sense of value. So they have to suck all their value from the people and environment around them. And they do that by pathologically lying and doing things that they need to do in order to control people. And, they have all kinds of favorite control tactics and manipulation tactics. And if you want to know what their favorite manipulation and punishment tactics are, check out my video on the narcissist's favorite manipulation and punishment tactics. But there are many, too many to really encompass all in one video, which is why I have an entire channel devoted to this particular topic, which also is devoted to help give you step-by-step guidance on how to get out of these relationships. I've seen it so much in my law practice. I've had to deal with them in my personal life. They get narcissistic supply by anything that feeds their ego, which, could be anything that feeds anybody's ego, like compliments and respect and things like that. But most often where they get their supply is by the things that they do, by lying, manipulating, intimidating, making people feel afraid, gaslighting, smear campaigns, all of those things that they do. And lying is one of the things that they do because they don't want you to see what you think you're seeing, which is that this person is a liar, that this person is not who they say they are. So it's this constant game of smoke and mirrors to try to get you to not see what they don't want you to see, which is that inside they're a scared little creature that has no sense of self, that you are actually the stronger one. You are actually the one that has more power, that has more value from their perspective. I mean, all human beings have value, inherent value, but they don't feel it. And so they don't want you to feel it either. They are extremely petty. And they live in a world of scarcity, not abundance. And so lying is a way of life for them. Now, honestly, they lie about things that they don't even need to lie about, which is kind of crazy to me. And they also lie about things that are very easily verifiable sometimes. And then they tell you that you're not seeing what you're seeing, which is what gaslighting is. There are certain types of lies that they specifically say to you throughout your relationship. So these are kind of like the most common. I'm sure that there's a lot of others, but these are the most common. So the first one is, ironically and paradoxically, no one is more truthful than me. You're going to never find anyone who's more truthful, more honest, has more integrity than me. I always tell the truth. I always tell it like I see it. And they say it with such confidence that you believe them, at least early on. My dad used to say, whatever you say it with authority and people will believe you. And narcissists have taken that to an extreme. So they say things even though, you see their lips moving and you know that you've seen a text message or you've had a situation where you know that they're lying. Even if you specifically say, here's an email where you said this, it's very clear that you're lying. They'll say, no, that's not true. That's not how it went. That's not what's happening, which is a form of gaslighting, by the way. But the first thing that they will say is, no one is more truthful than I am. The second thing that they say is some form of, I love you, I care about you, I'm here for you. And if you want to know more about what a narcissist means when they say, I love you, and what they don't mean when they say, I love you, check out my video on what does a narcissist mean when they say, I love you. When they are saying, I love you, I care about you, I'm here for you, it's not that that's what they actually feel, because true narcissists have no ability, no capacity to feel anything for anyone else. They just lack that synapse. It's like missing from their makeup, from their brain. It's just broken and it can't be fixed. They cannot truly love another person. They cannot truly care about another person. And they certainly don't want to be there for anybody else. They only want what they can get out of you. And so they will say these things sometimes to get you to do what they want you to do, or think what they want you to think, or get off of whatever it is that you're on them about, just to, say what they need to say. Sometimes it's a form of future faking. And if you want to know more about future faking, you should definitely check out my video on that. But, they don't really love you. They're not really there for you, and they don't care about you. And you can tell that because their actions speak louder than words. Try getting sick and expecting a narcissist to actually care about you and be there for you. I mean, if you're lucky, they just don't feel anything. Most of the time, what they really do is they resent you. They resent the fact that you might want care or attention or something from them, because that means that you're not paying attention to them. And there's not enough to go around in their world, like they're very scarcity minded. So if you want something, that means they can't have it. The second thing is, I love you, I care about you, I'm there for you. The third one is, I'm sorry, or things will be different. And, I call it narcissist faux apologies. And if you want to know more about, what a faux apology is, check out my video on what a narcissist really is doing when they say, I'm sorry. But most of the time, narcissists really don't even say sorry. But if they do, it's definitely to manipulate you, to try to get something out of you. It might just be lip service, and because it's in front of somebody and they want the person, the third party, to see it. It may be just to shut you up. It may be kind of even more like a sarcastic apology. I'm sorry that I couldn't be better for you, or something like that. But they really don't mean it. There's never any real remorse for their actions. So when they say I'm sorry, it's definitely a lie, unfortunately. And if you think that their lies are so sad and so pathetic, I want to see a so sad in the comments. Just drop that below. So sad. So the fourth lie that they often tell is, I promise. I promise I'll do better. I promise that I will be the most amazing spouse, husband, wife, business partner, mother, father, sister, brother, neighbor, whatever it is. Nobody is going to be better than me. I'm the best at whatever it is. So I promise that the way things are going to be are the most amazing things in the world. And again, this is a form of future faking. And it's basically a future that they know they're never going to make good on. They're never going to follow through with these promises. And they just want to say whatever they want to say just to get you to do what they want you to do at that moment, or feel the way they want you to feel right at that moment, which is that they're wonderful, you're the one who has the problem, or that, however, whatever it is that you have a problem with them right now about, it's not going to be that way in the future. So just like, get off of it. Let's just deflect it, deny it, move on. So I promise. That's the fourth lie that you often hear from a narcissist. And the last common lie that you often hear from a narcissist is, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. Or if I did, it was because somebody else had a problem. Somebody else didn't follow through on what they were supposed to do. It's your fault. I could have done it except for you getting in my way. But for whatever reason, it's not their fault. Let's talk about phrases that narcissists use to control you. There are a lot of different ones that they use, but the good news for you is that narcissists actually do use the same types of phrases that in all different sorts of situations. I mean, the one thing I often say is that they're horrible, they're heinous, they're toxic, but it's almost like they use the same playbook. They are actually pretty predictable in their behavior. Are there different types of narcissists? Absolutely. There are. There are covert narcissists, there are grandiose narcissists, there are malignant narcissists. And by the way, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I do have a whole video on that. I do believe that covert narcissists are probably the most dangerous type of narcissist in a lot of ways because they're the most difficult to detect. A lot of times they're the stealthiest ones. They look kind and sweet, and a lot of times they paint themselves as a victim. Sometimes they're like downtrodden. Oh, poor me. They guilt trip people a lot of times. And so a lot of times the coverts are the most difficult ones to spot. And the two that I had to deal with that targeted me were both covert. So going back to phrases that narcissists use to control you, one of them is no one else will love you the way that I will, or no one else understands you the way that I do. No one else will deal with you. Basically trying to make you feel like you're so disgusting, repulsive, horrible, whatever in some way that you might as well not go anywhere else because they're the only ones who can, manage you, handle you, like you, love you, whatever. But yet somehow they love you, they like you, they deal with you, they manage you. But, you might as well stick with them because they do. But it's like kind of messed up because why do they stick with you and like you and love you or whatever? It kind of defies logic, but yet that is something that they often will say, so it's sort of like to get you to stay because if you go anywhere else, you're going to be rejected. You'll be alone. You'll be isolated. So you might as well stick with this person who's basically mentally, psychologically, and spiritually abusing you. So that's number one. Number two is they talk in absolutes. Everyone else thinks this, or no one else thinks that. Like basically to try to get you to believe that whatever it is that you think is just stupid, dumb, ridiculous, not based in reality. If you're trying to make a point to them about something that you think, usually about something about them, they'll try to use this collective, who the hell knows who. You don't even know who everyone else is, or no one else is. But these, nebulous whoever's don't agree with you. They all agree with the narcissist, whoever these people are. But it's meant to try to make you feel bad It's meant to try to make you feel like your opinion is completely discredited, invalidated, means nothing, and therefore you shouldn't have it because, whoever their flying monkeys are, they all are lined up with them and against you. So that's another kind of phrase that narcissists use to control you. Another type of phrase that narcissists use to control you, and there are going to be several of these. We're going to go into the types of phrases that narcissists use within the gaslighting realm. By the way, I do have a whole video on how to shut down gaslighting, which you should definitely check out as well. But so these are the types of phrases that narcissists will use to make you think that you're crazy, because gaslighting is meant to make you think that you're crazy. It's meant to make you feel like whatever it is that you're thinking isn't true, to make you question your mind, to make you question your reality, to make you question what it is that you believe that you saw or you heard, or what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing, or what you're hearing isn't what you're hearing, or what the conversation is that you believe took place isn't what you took place. Your feelings aren't your feelings. That's what gaslighting is. So they will say things in the gaslighting realm such as, you're oversensitive. So you're oversensitive is to invalidate your feelings. So if you are feeling hurt about something that took place, then they'll say you're oversensitive. You shouldn't be hurt about that. That's meant to invalidate your feelings. Another gaslighting phrase is something like, we talked about that, and this is what we agreed to. You agreed to this, don't you remember? And you'll be like, we didn't agree to that. We never had that conversation. We agreed to this, or that conversation never took place at all. They will change the details of a conversation, or they'll basically say that you agreed to something that never took place whatsoever. That's total gaslighting. You'll say, you said this, and they'll say, I never said that. I never said that at all. Again, that's gaslighting. They'll say things like you're delusional when you're trying to say something about how something took place, or how you're feeling about something, or your perception of something that's happening. You're delusional. I mean, that's totally meant to just say you're crazy. I mean, that's straight up gaslighting. Straight up gaslighting. If you see a text message between somebody and a coworker, maybe it's your husband and a coworker that looks flirtatious or something, and it doesn't look totally appropriate. You're just jealous. And it turns out maybe you weren't just jealous. Maybe there was something going on between them. That's all gaslighting. Those are all gaslighting types of phrases. They're designed to make you think that you're crazy. Another type of gaslighting is in conversation, where you're trying to have a conversation with them, and you'll say, I want to talk to you about, these text messages that I saw. And they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? And you say, well, when would be a good time? And they'll say, oh, I don't like your tone. Well, I didn't raise my voice. Yes, you did. You just raised your voice. And now I can't talk to you because you're raising your voice at me. And now you can't get to the point of it because they keep interrupting you about that. Oh, now you just interrupted me. Oh, now it's about this. Oh, now it's about that. And you can never get to the actual point of the conversation because they keep talking about other things. And, they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else. Again, project, deflect, lie, deny. If you've seen any of this so far, I would love to see a totally in the comments, because I'm sure that you guys have seen some of this so far. Okay. And then the next kinds of phrases that narcissists will use to control you are what I call guilt trip phrases. Guilt trip phrases. And you will definitely see this with covert narcissists. This is so much, because of the victim mentality with covert narcissists. I mean, this is the one thing that you always see with covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on the one thing you always see with covert narcissists. You should definitely check it out. So guilt trip phrases. This is like, especially if you try to leave a covert narcissist, you try to leave a narcissist, they might try to say things like, I would die if you leave, or don't leave the family. I would commit suicide if you leave, or you can't leave the family. Oh, I can't believe you're spending time over there. I can't believe you wouldn't be with the family. And so they'll try to guilt trip you, so that you don't do the kinds of things that you want to do. They'll try to make you feel bad about having a life or doing other things or that. And so they will use phrases like that to try to guilt trip you back into doing the things that they want you to do. That's a little bit more passive aggressive. And, you will see passive aggressive types of phrases from especially covert narcissists, you've lost weight, but you still have a ways to go. Things like that, passive aggressive types of things from covert narcissists. It's like not so nice kinds of things. Like they try to say nice things, but then it ends up not being so nice, that sort of thing. But that's not phrases used to control you. Those are just passive aggressive types of things, but that's another whole story. But this video and this podcast is really focused on the phrases that narcissists use to control you. So, sex and narcissists. This is one of the lesser discussed, less talked about, less information is available on how narcissists actually use sex to control their victims. But it is absolutely happening, and it's something that we should be discussing more. In fact, sex is one of the most common ways that narcissists use to gaslight their victims. It's highly personal, it's very insidious, extremely toxic. Nobody knows what's happening because it's happening behind closed doors. So it's one of those areas that no one's going to see, which makes it a perfect way for narcissists to abuse their victims. It's highly personal, it's extremely embarrassing for people, so people just end up not talking about it, or maybe they just actually think that there's something wrong with them, because that's what the narcissist wants you to believe. If you think that this is a really crappy way for narcissists to control their targets, give me a "they suck" in the comments. Narcissists use many different ways to psychologically abuse their targets. If you want to know more about the different types of tactics that narcissists employ for control, check out my video on narcissist manipulation tactics. Because sex is such an important part of who we are as human beings, and especially with your romantic partner, you want to feel attractive, you want to feel like your romantic partner desires you. And so, of course, because that's something that you want, it's a perfect place for the narcissist to make sure that they control you and coerce you in this area. So the people who are in relationship with narcissists end up feeling used, abused, discarded. You end up feeling less desirable, or maybe not desirable at all. What happens in the bedroom when you're in relationship with a narcissist is that your needs are completely irrelevant, just the same as they are anywhere else. They set you up so that you feel like there's something wrong with you, and you end up feeling ashamed, and it affects your confidence, and it affects your self-worth. And it's something that ends up being so private and so personal that you end up feeling very, very isolated, because it's embarrassing. You don't want to have to admit to your friends or your family or even to a therapist that maybe your spouse doesn't want you, doesn't desire you, or that maybe you no longer desire that person because of the way they've made you feel, because of the way they've made your needs completely irrelevant. When you're in a sexual relationship with a narcissist, they communicate to you the message that your pleasure isn't important, that only their pleasure matters. And they subtly let you know that if you want pleasure, or if you want anything out of the romantic relationship, that you're being greedy, or maybe that there's something wrong with you for wanting that. But the bottom line is, what's really going on is that narcissists use it as a form of supply. Because remember, narcissists have no inner sense of value. They have to derive all of their value from the external. And that external value that they're sucking from all the people around them, we call narcissistic supply. It's their oxygen. It's what they feed on. It's their food. Because they're constantly trying to feed this beast and layer on this external value to slap onto the fact that they have no inner sense of internal value. And they have no ability to care for another person. So if they have no ability to have empathy or care for another person, it does not make them good sexual partners, because they certainly don't care about your needs, your desires, your wants. So narcissists use sex as a form of narcissistic supply. Remember that supply can come in the form of, big house, big car, the best schools, the right friends, the prestigious job. But narcissistic supply can also come in the form of control, gaslighting, devaluing, debasing, cutting people down, minimalizing them, marginalizing them, and making them think that they're crazy. So here you are in a situation where it's the most vulnerable. When you have a sexual relationship with somebody, it's a very, very vulnerable thing. It's a very vulnerable position to be putting yourself into. And so whenever you expose vulnerability to a narcissist, that becomes an excellent place for them to go after. Because anytime you show weakness or show something that you want to a narcissist, that becomes an immediate place for them to target. They're always looking for weaknesses, always looking, trolling, looking for ways to control people. And they can control people in areas where they are feeling vulnerable, or exposing themselves, or exposing anything that you want to a narcissist. That becomes a place where they can maybe get that from you. And so when you're negotiating with a narcissist, it's the same thing. You never let on exactly what it is that you want, and you try to steer them away from that, because you know that that's the one thing that they're going to go after. But in a sexual relationship, you can't really play those games as much. I mean, you're in a sexual relationship, so you want to feel desirable. You want to feel like your partner wants to give you pleasure, and vice versa. That's the whole basis of a sexual relationship. But when you're in partnership with a narcissist, you're never going to get that. Just the same as any of the relationship with the narcissist, the sexual part is actually just one component. It's one more area for them to gaslight. It's one more area for them to control. One more area for them to make you feel less, for them to devalue you. But it becomes very, very personal, and it hurts way down into your soul, because you don't feel desired by the one person you want to feel desired by. So it actually manifests itself in a number of different ways, which we're going to cover in parts 2 and 3 of this series. This is such an important topic that I decided to do it in 3 parts. And today was just the first part, where we're just kind of giving you the basis of what's really going on in a sexual relationship with a narcissist. So let's talk about what coercive control is when it comes to narcissism. The thing that you have to do is understand where it comes from before we can even really understand what coercive control is and why they do it. So narcissists have no inner sense of value. Something happened with them when they were back in their childhood, and they came to a conclusion that the world is a bad place. They came to a conclusion that they have no sense of value, that there's something maybe innately wrong with them, or something innately broken. And it could have been anything. It could have been a trauma that happened to them. It could have been abuse that happened to them. I've even read some things that have said that children who are overindulged too much, they feel like their parents didn't care enough about them to discipline them, to give them boundaries. You know, children need boundaries. They need guidelines. They need structure to feel secure. And without that, they sometimes end up feeling like they have no inner sense of value. So who knows how it happened, but what happened is that at some point they drew the conclusion that they didn't have value to them. So they ended up feeling like they needed to get value from the outside world in some way. So they're trying to layer it on, they kind of slather it on this narcissistic supply, but underneath, you know, it's still a feeling of emptiness, of worthlessness, and all of that. And no, empaths, you can't fix it. You can't make them better. They just end up sucking you into their poisonous vortex, and you just end up trying to get out. When people are leaving a narcissist, they don't just walk away nicely. You know, they run with their hair on fire trying to get away from these people because it's terrible. So you can't fix them, but they have this sense of emptiness inside of them. And so they draw this conclusion that they need to take control of the world by, you know, controlling everything around it, because without that sense of control, they feel like they're not being seen. They feel like they don't exist in the world. So coercive control is actually a form of narcissistic supply. And that supply is anything that feeds that narcissist's ego. So it could be, you know, anything that feeds a narcissist's ego. It could be money, compliments, or, you know, prestige or whatever. But most of the time what you see with narcissists is where they are actually trying to control a person, or they're devaluing them, or they're manipulating them, or intimidating, you know, all of those kinds of sort of the dark side of narcissism. Those are the kinds of things that you often see with narcissists. And if you've seen that dark side of a narcissist, give me an "I've seen it" in the comments. So when a narcissist feels insecure, which is all the time, they try to exert control over other people in order to kind of control their environment. So it's a type of control that they put over a person that ends up manifesting itself in all sorts of ways. You know, they actually start to, you know, maybe want to know where you are at all times. Maybe they look at your phone. Maybe they control how you dress, what you wear, who you see, when you see them. What kind of car you drive, when you drive your car. I actually saw a situation one time where the husband would actually, you know, check the mileage on the car before he would leave for work and see, you know, if the wife drove anywhere at the end of the day. And if she did, where did she go? You know, they might put car trackers on you. They might track your phone. They might have some sort of software that tracks what your emails are, what your text messaging is, things like that. I mean, it can get really, really malignant and poisonous, where they're looking to control every aspect of your life. What you think, what you say, how you breathe, almost everything. And then while they're doing this, they're probably devaluing you and treating you poorly, also while they're love bombing you and all the other things. But It's a form of controlling you that can go really, really deep and really, really far. But what they're trying to do is make sure that all of your world is about them. Every single thing. I mean, they might even be like, if you look at, happen to, inadvertently look up and see a person, they might say, oh, you want that person. They don't even want you looking at other people. They don't want you talking to other people. Sometimes it can get really, really advanced like that. So it can be kind of scary sometimes when they get really deep into this type of coercive control. But it's a form of narcissistic supply. It gives them supply to know that they have control. It feeds their ego. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, check out my video on narcissistic supply. It goes much deeper into what you need to know about narcissistic supply. In a divorce setting, how I see coercive control manifesting itself is when somebody chooses a lawyer, and they really don't want you to have a lawyer, because that now this is another person who might exert control over you, another person who you might listen to, another person who's going to be advising you, and you might be taking that person's opinion or advice over theirs, which of course you should definitely be listening to your lawyer if you have one. So, but what they'll start to do in this particular situation is they'll start to try to devalue your lawyer to you. So, they'll come up to you and they'll say, your lawyer is a bad lawyer, or your lawyer is too busy, or your lawyer is just in it for the money, or they just start to badmouth your lawyer in some way, because they're realizing that they're losing control over you. And if you want to know more about what happens when a narcissist is starting to lose control, or what the signs are, make sure you check out my video on signs that a narcissist is losing control. But in a divorce setting, anybody who's going to start to try to have control over you, or that they perceive is going to have now control over you instead of them, is going to become the enemy. So they're going to start targeting those people so that you stay into their web of control, even as you're on the way out. Even if they are divorcing you, even if they're the ones leaving you, you start to see that happening. Okay, so let's talk about Operation Triangulation. If you have dealt with a narcissist in any way, shape, or form, then you have dealt with triangulation. Another word for it is flying monkeys. And if you want to know more about the word flying monkeys and all of that, go check out my video on flying monkeys. So this is a tactic that narcissists use. So remember, they need an endless amount of supply. They are supply whores. They must have it. They must have it in any way, shape, or form that they can possibly get it. Anything that they can have to feed that ego. It's like oxygen, food. It's their lifeblood. It's like what they breathe in, they must have. And they literally will take it from everywhere they can get it. So one of the ways that they can get it, and it actually kind of works out pretty well for them, because when they triangulate, they're getting the attention from the flying monkey, or that person that they're triangulating with, and it has the benefit, the added benefit, the little bonus sugar cherry on top of making you miserable. So they get both. So it's like so beautiful for them. They actually figured out a way to not only get supply out of you, but they can get it out of multiple places at once. Isn't that fantastic? So they get to have this other person adulate them and think that they're so wonderful. And you are over there going, what are you doing with this person? Who are you talking to? What are you saying? Or they come back and they say,
I spoke with Mary over there, and Mary agrees with me that you're crazy, or that you don't appreciate me, or that you treat me badly, or how wrong it is that you don't believe everything that I say. And whether Mary said that or not doesn't even matter, because it serves the purpose that they want to serve, which is, making you miserable. So that's what they do. They line up their flying monkeys. It's a reference to the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz, where she had those flying monkeys like next to her, and they would just fly around and report back to the Wicked Witch and let the Wicked Witch know what was going on. Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion, they're just walking along the yellow brick road, all, innocent and happy. And there's the flying monkeys like coming along to see what's going on and reporting back, just like the little minions. And that's what happens with narcissists as well. They have their little minions that are looking to see what's going on social media. And then they would go running back, scurrying back, and they tell the narcissist what's going on. Oh my goodness, they posted this, or they went there, or I saw them say this. And let's all scurry and figure out what they're talking about. And you're over there feeling left out, feeling isolated, paranoid, wondering what's going on. Then you go ask the narcissist about it. And they love that, because it's working then. Now you're worried. Now you're upset. They know that they got you. So, you want to know what I was talking about with Mary over there? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Or Mary said this, or Mary said that. And now you're bothered because they want you to feel bothered. They want you to feel like you're left out in the cold, like you're isolated. And a lot of the times they use their special phrases, like everybody else thinks this and no one else thinks that. If you want to know more about the narcissist's favorite phrases, check out my video on that topic. But the whole point of it is to try to make you feel bad. And if you are so sick of those flying monkeys, say banish flying monkeys in the comments below. Just say banish flying monkeys, because they really do need to be banished. I know when I was dealing with a couple of narcissists in my life, I had that situation, and, as long as you're still in the narcissist space, you're giving them opportunities to use their operation triangulation to try to get at you. And, the best thing that you can do, honestly, is just not react at all. Just act like you don't really care who they're talking to. You don't really care what they're saying. Don't even ask them about it. Don't even acknowledge that they had a conversation with that person. Because as soon as you do that, you're giving them narcissistic supply. You're giving into that. And it's funny because I kind of knew that before I even knew these terms. I had never heard of the term triangulation. I had never heard of flying monkeys. And to me, narcissists were like people who were going around bragging about themselves all the time. I honestly didn't really even know what a narcissist was. I didn't know anything about covert narcissists until somebody said the word to me. And that's when I started to figure it out. And by the way, Operation Triangulation is a favorite of the coverts. They love it. So if you're dealing with a covert narcissist, you're definitely dealing with triangulation. But all narcissists like to use triangulation. It's one of their little favorite go-to bag of tricks. And so if you know that you're with somebody, whether it's in a business setting or a personal setting, and they're trying to make you jealous, or they're trying to use other people to somehow evoke a response from you, then you're probably with a narcissist, and it's probably time to, head out the door and figure out a way to get out of this relationship. So if you were getting ready to negotiate with a narcissist, especially, any kind of difficult person, whether it's a narcissist or not. By the way, it doesn't even matter if they've actually been labeled as a narcissist. It could just be a jackass, but if they're extremely difficult to deal with, then, it's going to be the same, right?
I know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. I've seen it. For years and years, I practiced law and I didn't see it. I didn't know how, narcissists operate. I didn't really understand this, even as a lawyer. It was really not until I dealt with it as somebody who was in a partnership with somebody in a business endeavor, separate and apart from my law practice, that I really started to dive into learning about narcissists. And I had been lecturing all over the country on negotiation. I had even written a book on negotiation, and I had been a keynote speaker at an American Bar Association event, and, all of this on negotiation, but I sure as heck didn't know that much about narcissism. And I didn't know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. And that's why the majority of attorneys in this country really don't understand narcissism. And it really wasn't until I realized I was dealing with a narcissist myself in a business situation that I really started to dive into learning about narcissism and reading a lot of books on narcissism. And that's when I started to apply what I was learning about narcissism to some of my cases when I was still practicing full on. And that's when I started to see real movement in how to deal with narcissists. And now I coach people on how to deal with narcissists. And I've come up with a whole program, Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist. That's when I really just started to learn how to deal with narcissists in a really powerful way. I know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. So one of the things that they do is they confuse the issues. They start talking about other things when you want to talk about something else. So one of the things that they'll do is, you'll say, hey, I want to talk to you about these text messages or something like that, and they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? Well, I just wanted to talk to you about these text messages, bringing that up now because you make it difficult for me. And you know how stressed I am about work, and I'm dealing with my sickness right now. And you know that I was sick last week, and I'm dealing with the stress of this and, all these other things. Oh, and you're yelling at me, and, the neighbors can hear us, and then all of a sudden it's about all these other different things. And you never get to talk about what it is that you wanted to talk about. They confuse the issues. Okay. So that's a sneaky way that they control you. All right. So that's number one. They confuse the issues. Number two is they look for your weaknesses and then they use those against you. They know exactly what it is that your Achilles heels are, what your weaknesses are. And especially the deeper you get into having a personal relationship with them, the longer that they know you, they'll start to say things that they know are your weaknesses against you. They'll say things like, well, you're not very good at that anyway, or like just little passive aggressive things that you'll be like, whoa, where did that come from? That person probably isn't getting along with you because you're not very good at getting along with people, or, something like that. And probably because of the issues that, you had with your mother, and that's why you don't get along well with people, or something like that. And it's like, what, just things like that they know will be hurtful to you, that sort of thing. So that's number two. Number three is gaslighting. All of narcissists use gaslighting to confuse you, to control you. And it's a very, very sneaky way to control you and try to confuse you, to make you think that you're crazy. And gaslighting, there's so many different forms of gaslighting, but it's a way of destabilizing you. It's a way of making you think that you're crazy. It's a way of making you think that your reality is not your reality. So I do have a whole video on narcissistic gaslighting phrases. But, in short, it's basically a very brief explanation is something like, I'm going away next weekend. Oh, you're going away next weekend? I didn't know you were going away. Oh, yeah, we talked about that and you agreed. Don't you remember? We never talked about that. Oh, yeah, we had a whole conversation about it and you agreed. We never talked about that. Oh, yeah, we did. And you never had that conversation, but they'll swear that you had that conversation. And, they'll say things like that so many times. And then you start to question your reality. Like, maybe we did have that conversation. And, that's the kind of thing that they'll do. Or, you'll see a text message that's very, very suggestive with a coworker and, at night or something like that, or love you and, that sort of thing. And they'll say, that's not what you're seeing. You're so needy. You're very paranoid. We're just friends, and make you think like you're the one who's crazy, that sort of thing. Number 4 sneaky way that narcissists control you is they become the victim by turning the tables. They do something wrong. And so, you question them on it. Like I had somebody who was a professional, somebody who used to work with me, and you would ask them about something that they were supposed to be doing. And then suddenly it was, that I had breast cancer 10 years ago. And, this is very stressful for me. And, and it became about that and not about the fact that they didn't do their work. And so now you're supposed to feel bad for bringing up the fact that they didn't do their work because they had breast cancer 10 years ago, and they become the victim. They turn the tables. So that's another way that sneaky ways that narcissists try to control you. Another way that narcissists try to control you is by shock and awe, like becoming very dramatic. They start to yell, they start to throw things, they wake you up in the middle of the night to have a fight with you, they throw on the lights, they might throw something, at the wall. They try to control you like that by becoming very, very dramatic. And, I had a slay client that I just interviewed, Shikati, who you should definitely listen to his interview on the podcast and also video here, where he talked about how he had actually like PTSD after getting out of the narcissistic relationship, because the narcissist that he was in relationship with used to throw on the lights in the middle of the night and, start to have fights with him in the middle of the night. That's the kind of thing they do. Shock and awe by becoming super dramatic. That's a way to control you, to bring you to your knees like that. So that's another one. Another one is these hot and cold games that they play. They start off with the love bombing, and you're the most amazing, incredible, special human being they've ever met. They sweep you off your feet. They rock your world. You are amazing. And huge gestures, and lock you in as quickly as possible. And you're like, wow. And then all of a sudden ghost you, and they don't respond to text messages, and days may go by. And then all of a sudden, like, you're so needy. What's up with you? I have to work. And, like these hot and cold games, that they play. And that's a way of controlling you. So that's another one. Another one that they do is use guilt. try to guilt you, So especially around holidays, or, I mean, this is a really biggie for covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on covert narcissism in relationships. Definitely check that out. And I dealt with a covert narcissist myself. So I know.
What is the best advice that you would give to someone who is dealing with a narcissist who is, in a situation where they're just like thinking, I don't know how I'm ever going to get out of this thing? What would you say to them?
My piece has a high price tag. And if I got to let go of some money to get some peace, I will do that. I will not let people walk over me, but I will not let that actual, the vase or whatever, the idea that I need to beat him or her. I need to beat the day, and I beat the day if I find some peace in it. And that, make them ancillary. It's hard to do, but your life is about your day. He or she is just a part of your day, and make them ancillary. It is a job. It is hard, but it is doable.
I like that. And what about boundaries? I just had that thought. Like, I teach people to like create boundaries, emotionally, physically, whatever boundary type they need to create. What would you say to that?
Oh, I think it's absolutely necessary. During this lockdown, I have boundaries. I'm not allowed to read emails after a certain time because it's not a good time today. I'm only allowed to consume a certain amount of news. I insert limits and boundaries on what I do, so I can be in charge of all of the incoming information, because between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you get a lot of emotional incoming from all over, and people are emoting, and they're emoting to the world. And if you're consuming all of that, you're consuming other people's raw emotions, and you don't need to do. So you should limit yourself with respect to the exposure that you have to incoming agitation and irritation.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I also teach people like, as far as like boundaries, sort of like tactical responses, such as if they get a long email that says, you're a deadbeat, you suck in every way, whatever. But there's like one piece in there that says, what time do you want to pick up Johnny on Wednesday? You could just like write back and say, I'm in receipt of your email. I disagree with your allegations, and you can pick up Johnny at 3:00 on Wednesday. Like,
yeah, no, and I think that's a very, very good idea, because if you don't buy into, they sent it for a reason. They didn't send it to convince you of that. They sent it to upset you. So if they wrote a 20-minute email, took 20 minutes to write a damning email, and then you come back with, yeah, you can pick them up at 9. That's a victory. You need to put that in the win column.
That is a victory. It is so true. I love that you put it like that. That's so great.
So what happens when a narcissist realizes that you refuse to be controlled? Well, first of all, narcissists need control because it protects their identities and their fragile egos. They are underneath very actually afraid of you. They're actually more afraid of you than you are of them. And I say that all the time. And I think a lot of people don't believe me, but that's true. That all that stuff that they layer on is actually just a show. I often say it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz. You know how the Wizard of Oz built that whole Emerald City and all that stuff? He did all of that because he was hiding that feeble, scared little man that was behind the curtain. That's what the narcissist is. They actually have very, very, very low self-esteem, a very fragile self that they're hiding. And they're manipulating others, and they use tactics such as gaslighting and guilt and shame and all of those things because they're trying to control their outcome, desperately trying to control their circumstances around them because they're actually very, very scared people. People who are sure of themselves, people who are confident, they're not desperate to try to control things. It's only actually very fearful people who are desperate to try to control. So knowing what narcissists are doing to try to control their victims or their targets will actually help you feel more educated, and it'll actually help you understand what's going on. And it will actually help you to be more prepared and anticipate what's going to happen. And that's part of my SLAY methodology, by the way, which is strategy, leverage, anticipate what's going to happen. And then you can focus on you, your position, and be ready. Okay. So anticipate is the A. And once you understand what's happening, you can anticipate what's going to happen. So understanding it will actually help you. So understand that they're actually very ashamed people. They have a lot of shame. I mean, you think you might have shame. Brene Brown talks about shame. They have more shame than anyone else. I mean, they are shame personified. They're like one big shame donut. So they use control and manipulation as a way to try to keep their kingdom intact. And you notice they build a kingdom around them and they don't really stray from that too much. Okay, so they do know exactly what they're doing and they are aware in some ways of their toxic behavior. And you know that they're aware because they know how to behave in certain situations. They know how to love bomb you to get you to do what they want in the beginning. They are aware of that. Okay, so what happens when they realize that you refuse to be controlled? We're going to go through 7 things. So number 1, you're going to see that narcissistic rage. I mean, because they have that narcissistic injury, which is that fragile self that they have. And once that scab is picked at, then that narcissistic rage is just beneath that surface, and that will come flying out. And that can come flying out in a couple of different ways. For an overt narcissist, you can see aggressive outbursts. And depending on how overt they are, you can start to see stalking or violence, or even threats of violence, threats of stalking, that sort of thing. For a covert narcissist, they might be a little bit more passive aggressive. They might make themselves into a victim, but that narcissistic rage will start to creep up and they start to be something more than what you might have seen in the past. The heat will start to turn up. So that is the first thing that you'll see. The next thing that you start to see, and this is, all part of that discard phase, you start to see the birth of the smear campaign. By the way, and I have mentioned this in the past, the birth of the smear campaign can start to happen long before what you start to perceive as the discard phase. Sometimes you see the 3 main phases of a narcissistic relationship. It's the love bombing, the devaluing, and the discard. And I've often said this before as well. It's not linear. They do go back and forth between these phases. And when you are going to negotiate with the narcissist, you have to understand that even in the negotiation phase, they will still go back and forth between these phases, because they will want to rely on using these phases to see what will potentially work for them. Even with the love bomb, by the way, don't confuse love bombing with true love. But I do want to say you will see that birth of that smear campaign potentially start happening even before what you perceive the discard phase to be. They start embedding pieces of smearing long before the breakup actually happens. And so they might have started lining up flying monkeys or their army of people by starting to say things against you and about you long before you realize there was even an issue, because they realize, hey, you might discard them eventually, or they may want to discard you eventually. So they start getting people on their side. And so they start saying things about you even long before. And by the way, the flying monkey may not even realize that they're being recruited. And I think that that's an important piece, that the flying monkey may be just being love bombed by that narcissist too. That's something that wasn't necessarily clear to me at the beginning either. You know, they might just be oblivious to the whole situation too. The other thing that I think that is important for you all to understand as well is that these phases are not necessarily just in intimate relationships or romantic relationships. The narcissist uses these tactics and interacts the same way, whether it's a business relationship, a romantic relationship, neighbors, friends, family, whoever it is, they are the same. They interact the same way, regardless of who they are interacting with or the type of relationship that it is. And what I mean, by the way, when I say they start saying things about people long before the discard phase, they don't necessarily even say, oh, that person is a bad person. They might actually even say it in a way where the flying monkey thinks that they're saying something in the spirit of caring. So they might say something like, oh, I'm concerned for so-and-so because they had too much to drink last night, or I'm concerned for so-and-so because of how they're behaving, or something like that, where it makes it seem like they're worried about you, but they're really embedding a smear. So it seems like they're a good person. So that's number 2, is the smear campaign. Number 3 is they might just do a disappearing act. They may just ghost you. They may just stop talking to you altogether. So that's number 3. Number 4, I alluded to a little bit in the narcissistic rage piece of it, but it garners its own piece. And that's number 4, and that is stalk you. This is where potentially could get violent. I have seen situations, especially as an attorney, especially what I call the malignant narcissists, who have no care or concern at all about potentially ruining your life. So stalk you, or even file motions or file things against you, where they might just actually say things against you that are completely false, fraudulent. I have actually seen narcissists file things against people that are just absolutely heinous and horrible, accuse people of child molestation or something like that, but stalking you, saying things against you, that sort of thing. So this is where a totally malignant narcissist might just completely try to control the target by just full out doing whatever they want to try to show their target or show their victim that they'll do whatever they need to ruin the other person's life completely. So that is number 4. Number 5 is public humiliation. So this is where the narcissist might just go public with whatever they know about the other person by saying things about them, such as intimate details about the person's sex life, maybe, or intimate details about maybe their gambling habits or things about them that, should they be made public, it would definitely be very embarrassing for the other person or could be very damaging for the other person. Certainly things about that other person that the other person would not want other people to know. And what's interesting about this from a narcissistic point of view is sometimes I have seen where it's actually potentially damaging for the narcissist as well. In other words, I have seen, wives, for example, where they will be very hot to get this information out there about where it could potentially ruin the husband, but then that means that they will not get alimony or something that they would have normally gotten, but they don't even care because it'll ruin the spouse. But yet that means that that person will get fired, or that nobody will want to hire that person anymore because it will ruin them in that community, but they don't even care. Like, it will actually hurt them too. It's their own undoing as well. But they don't think it through. They don't think it all the way through when they go through with this whole public humiliation. But that's number 5. Number 6 is the lying and denying. And that is where they just will lie and deny about anything and everything. And that's, something that narcissists just do anyway. But they'll continue to do it, and they'll escalate their lying and denying. And they will do that all the way through, especially when they realize that you refuse to be controlled. The last thing, number 7, is they will bait you and try to trigger you. This is even more so when they realize that you refuse to be controlled, because they will want to try to catch you. They will want to try to get you. They were sort of like, what they say is, how they often say that dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Anything you do or say will be used against you. But they will definitely want to try to do that even more so in these situations, because they want to try to get you. It's not only that they're getting narcissistic supply from it, but they want to use something against you. So definitely you want to go gray rock with this. Do not give them the supply, narcissistic supply, and do not give them anything, because remember, anything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. So just shut that down.